Hello dear viewer, this video is one of my regular collection update videos where I talk about some of the films that I have just been enjoying lately, and hopefully you can take one or two of these as recommendations for yourself. Before I get into the films, I want to quickly mention some of the recent videos I've made on the channel. I made one about physical media burnout and film watching burnout, which obviously is relevant to what I do on the channel. It's relevant to this kind of collection update video, so if you've not watched that yet, definitely go and check that out. And my previous video to this one was about the recent discussions about 4K reviews and are we taking 4K too seriously as a format. And there's a lot of heated discussion in the comments of that video, so do go and check that out if you haven't as well. But now let's just get into what I've been watching and enjoying. First of all, an absolute doozy. It's Anatomy of a Fall. The film written and directed by Justine Triet, which won the Palme d'Or at Cannes Film Festival, and it won the Oscar for Best Screenplay. And I have to agree, this is one of the best films that I saw last year. It follows this married couple who live in a chalet in the mountains with their young son who has impaired vision. One day, while the husband is working at the top of the house, he falls out of the window and dies. And then an investigation ensues and his wife is implicated in perhaps pushing him out of the window. What follows is in some sense a murder mystery, it's a court case drama, but it's also a dissection of a relationship and the breakdown of a relationship. Another of my favourite 2023 films is Poor Things from Yorgos Lanthimos, starring Emma Stone in the leading role as Bella Baxter. In Poor Things, we follow this character who has the brain of a child inserted into a woman's body, and we watch her as she grows and interacts with all sorts of different people in this very colourful and almost surreal world. It's such a well-designed film, and one of my favourite things about it is the cinematography from Robbie Ryan. And the look of the film, of course, brings me on to the fact that this does not have a 4K disc release anywhere in the world. It is only available on Blu-ray, yet it is streaming in 4K on Disney+. So although the Blu-ray looks great, it would have been nice to have a 4K release, but I guess it just wasn't viable. But regardless, it's a great film. Do go and see this however you can. Something I was also kindly sent by Disney was the film Wish on Blu-ray. Now, this film does not have a 4K release in the UK, although it does in the US. So again, a bit of a running theme that we're getting more modern releases not getting 4K discs as well. Anyway, Wish as a film didn't work for me really, which I'm quite sad to say because I did want to like it. But it really is just rather generic. It very much feels like it's playing the greatest hits of Disney's animated classics without really having much originality to it. And I think the characters don't really have that much charisma, the songs aren't really that catchy, and the film utilises a different animation style to what Disney have been using recently, where it's almost a mix between 3D animation but with a rather 2D style, which in theory sounds great, but actually it comes across rather undercooked. Don't get me wrong, I'm clearly not the target audience for this kind of film, so maybe if you've got young ones, they might love it. But for me, it just makes me sort of lament the fact that we're not getting the level of calibre from Disney's animated films like we were back in the 1990s, for example. Now we go to a film that is definitely not for your children. It's Green Room, and this is the 4K release from Second Sight Films, the limited edition packaging where you get a great booklet and art cards inside. Green Room follows this punk rock band who are looking for gigs, and they get given a gig last minute at a venue where the crowd is quite unsavoury, and that's putting it lightly. Things go very wrong, it gets very violent and bloody, and it is then a fight for survival. I was very impressed with this 4K disc because a lot of the film is set in darkness, and as we know, that's something that a 4K disc can really handle well. There is some very grisly, gory sequences in this film, some that when I saw it back at the cinema, I had a very strong reaction to it, and it made me feel very unwell, quite frankly. So not for the faint of heart, that's for sure, but a great release from Second Sight. Another 4K release from Second Sight that I watched is Possessor, the Brandon Cronenberg film, a science fiction story about assassins who take control of other people's bodies to perform these assassinations. But it's a story that looks at personalities and how they can morph into one another. And like his father, Brandon Cronenberg very much likes to look at how bodies change and how minds change over time. It's another great 4K disc from Second Sight. I was very impressed by this one. I hadn't seen this film before, so this was my first time watching it. And again, there's a lot of sequences that are in darkness, and I think the 4K disc really kind of helps keep those sequences robust, if that makes sense. Another great package from Second Sight Films as well, with the booklet and the art cards. Tons of special features on the disc as well, so I had a great time with this one. Sticking with the 4K releases, I have the film Barb Wire, starring the one and only Pamela Anderson. This is the Turbine Media full slip steelbook version with this artwork here, and if I take this out, this is what the steelbook looks at inside, with both a Blu-ray and the 4K disc. Barb Wire is a dystopian, cyberpunk, anti-fascist story with a lot of really fun action sequences and a lot of quite corny dialogue, let's be honest. Some people just dismiss this film as complete trash. I actually think it has quite a lot of heart at the centre of it. I do find it very entertaining. What can I say? I love watching Pamela Anderson, and it's just a very fun role. We don't get many films like this nowadays, which some people might say is a good thing. And I wish there were more films like this today, taking risks and just having fun. I thought the 4K disc was a great one. I didn't have much to compare it to, quite frankly, but the clarity was all there. You could see absolutely everything. So if you can get your hands on this from Turbine Media, I definitely recommend it. This next film is from a filmmaker who I've talked about on the channel recently a few times. It's Abel Ferrara's Fear City. This is from 101 Films here in the UK. And I was so glad to see this coming to Blu-ray here, because it did have a Blu-ray in the US, but I think it's long out of print because it goes for a lot of money on the secondary market. And Abel Ferrara is one of those directors who I would quite like to have all of his films in my collection one day. The film is set in New York, where these strippers are being targeted by a serial killer, and we followed the police and also the booking agent of these strippers, who is trying to find out who the killer is. It's a very stylized, dark depiction of New York City, one that we have seen the director look at in many of his other films, and while the film may not be perfect, certain sequences are done so well, and it has that Abel Ferrara stamp on it. The film is presented uncut on this disc, but it's taken from two different sources, so the quality does vary at very particular times. There is an audio commentary on the film, and then you also get a booklet within this case as well. So I highly recommend this one. This is a real gem. It's not available in many other places in the world, so I'm so glad to see it in print in the UK. The next 4K disc I watched was the film Millennium Actress from the great anime director Satoshi Kon, who sadly passed away too young, but he left us great number of films and television series, including Perfect Blue, which might be my favourite anime film. Millennium Actress follows these documentary filmmakers who are making a programme on this aging Japanese actress. Looking back at her career, they go to interview her, and we see her story through flashbacks, where her real life and the roles that she played in films all blend together. So it is very much a story that plays with reality, and that's what you would come to expect from the director. The film has a great presentation on the 4K disc. There's no addition of HDR, which I don't think affects how the film looks. It still looks very vibrant. The animation looks clean. I know some people say, well, what's the point in 4K for an animated film like this? Which, you know, your mileage may vary on whether you think this kind of film deserves a 4K. I can definitely tell a difference compared to past versions of the film that I've seen. So it's just great to have it in this sort of quality. There are some good interviews on the special features of the disc, talking to the voice actors and some of the filmmakers. So I had a great time with this. Thanks very much to my friends at All The Anime for sending this to me, because I wasn't expecting it, and I hadn't picked this up on 4K anyway, so I was glad to finally check it out. Next, I have a Blu-ray from a boutique label that I absolutely love. It's the label's second run and their latest film, Happy End. This is a Czech new wave black comedy about this man who has murdered his wife and her lover, but the story is told in reverse. So we see him as he has just been executed, but then we follow his life backwards, and with the story being told backwards, there's some great moments for satire and comedy, because people's conversations happen in reverse. The film has a sepia tone to it, which makes it feel like a very old-fashioned relic. It's the kind of inventiveness that I've come to know and love from the Czech New Wave, and I'm so happy that Second Run put out these great discs and introduced these films to us. There's a great audio commentary from the projection booth on here, there's a video essay as well, and a booklet inside the case. So I strongly recommend this. It also happens to be about 70 minutes in length. So it's such a short film. When you don't have the time for a really long film, this is a great one. It's so much fun. Next up, I watched the film Harriet, which recently got a 4K disc from Universal. This is the biopic about Harriet Tubman and her escape from slavery, which was released about 5 years ago, but is only just getting a 4K disc now. It's a difficult one because as a film, I really wanted to like this more. It has a great central performance from Cynthia Erivo, but I very much feel like the film was getting in the way of telling this story in an authentic and engaging way. Maybe it's something that on a different watch it will hit me in a different way, but for that central performance I think it's well worth seeing anyway. And the 4K disc was a strong one as well. Yet another 4K disc that I had the pleasure of watching recently was the film Night of the Blood Monster, or The Bloody Judge. This film is from director Jess Franco, starring Christopher Lee, and it's about the witch hunts that were going on around the time of the end of the 17th century in England. This is the first disc that I've ever owned from Blue Underground. I have to say I'm very impressed by how this film looks. The 4K restoration is absolutely stunning. The Dolby Vision, all of the colours, you can see so much in the 4K image, and it makes it very easy to forget that this film was made almost 60 years ago. Now, the version of the film that is presented here is said to be the most uncut, uncensored version of the film, and it uses different sources to compile to make this final version, which means that the quality does drop in a few places, and the film itself feels quite inconsistent tonally. Reportedly, Christopher Lee didn't know that this film was going to contain some of the more exploitative stuff, and after the film's release he distanced himself from the project because he just wasn't happy with what was shown in the film. You do get some very typical Jess Franco stuff in this film, which is why I would say it is an acquired taste. This is not one that I think everyone should run out and get. But if you do happen to be a fan of Jess Franco, or say a particular fan of Christopher Lee, this might be one that you want to check out. There is a 4K disc which has 3 audio commentaries on it, and then an additional Blu-ray which has a whole host of other special features, including interviews with the filmmakers and various other people talking about the appreciation of the film. This release does actually come with a slipcover, but I can't really show it in full because let's just say YouTube might flag this for what is shown. So maybe if you have small children in your family around your house, don't show them the cover of Night of the Blood Monster. All of that said, I was very pleased with this release, and now it makes me want more from Blue Underground. This is the only film I have in my collection from them, so I'm going to have to go back and try and get some of their other 4K releases, as well as looking forward to what they do in the future. Next, let's quickly talk about A Kid for Two Farthings, which is the film from Carol Reed, which got a new Blu-ray from Studio Canal as part of their Vintage Classics line. This is from a brand new restoration with new special features on the disc, and it looks great. It tells the story of this young boy living in a poor area of London, and he believes he has found a unicorn when he comes across this goat which has one tiny little horn. It's a very touching story about difficulties in life from a child's perspective, and it's wonderfully directed by Carol Reed, who we know is a master of cinema. I highly recommend this Region B disc if you can get it from Studio Canal. It comes with this slipcover, as all of their releases do as well. And then a great superhero movie of sorts that I watched was The Freaks versus the Reich. This is an Italian film about this group of misfits who are working in a travelling circus, who have these supernatural powers. One of them is very strong but covered in hair. One of them can control insects. One of them has magnetic powers. And as you might expect, they take on the Nazis and much action ensues. One of the most fun, inventive action superhero films I've seen in recent times. So if you're looking for something which isn't the typical superhero formula, I found this very refreshing. This Blu-ray was a recent release from Dazzler in the UK, and I actually have another copy of this to give away to one of my viewers. So all you have to do is head on over to Instagram, go on my profile at Elliot Coen Films, and just comment on the post that I make about this film, and you'll be entered to win a copy of this. Please note that the giveaway is only open to people in the UK at this time. So do go over to my Instagram and leave a comment on the post to enter for a chance to win a copy of this. So that was a big stack of some of the films that I've been watching and enjoying lately. Hopefully you can take at least one of these as a recommendation for things to go and watch, and hopefully love. If you like some more film recommendations from me, just click the video that's presented on screen right now. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.